Have you ever noticed that when people go to debunk astrology, they do so in the same one or two or three methods? Because I have, and as an astrologer, it's very frustrating because I just believe that any good astrologer would be able to answer those debunking concepts very easily in a very straightforward manner. These are things which astrologers already know about. So basically, I just haven't seen anyone answer these really, and so I'm going to provide my answer to some of the most common ways of debunking astrology that I've noticed. Basically, debunking the debunking. So let's get into it. So first of all, people first of all, there's the precessional cycle, or it has many different names. There's the precession of the equinoxes, or Milankovitch cycles could be tied into that. I don't know if people talk about Milankovitch cycles really, but it pertains to that because it pertains to the movements of the Earth. I'm not gonna get super technical, although I can do that in another video if you would like me to. Just suggest it in the comments. But basically, the reasoning goes like this. It goes, let's say, hey, you're a Virgo. Like, I'm a Virgo, so I'll just use that. You think you're a Virgo, right? But that must mean that the sun was over the constellation Virgo when you were born, right? That's what astrologers are saying, right? But actually, no. You have had sun over Leo when you were born. Does that make sense? So, like, the sun wasn't literally over that constellation; it was over a different constellation. And for me, yes, that would be true. The sun wasn't born when I was born. The sun wasn't over the constellation Virgo; it was over the constellation Leo. So, does that make me a Leo? And does that like disprove all of astrology? So, like, no. um, First of all, there's two different types of astrology, and so like there's two different types of astrology. There's Western, which uses tropical astrology, and then there's Eastern or Vedic, which uses sidereal. And one uses literally the position of the constellation. So if you were born with the sun over the Leo constellation, like I was, you'd be a Leo. I would be a Leo in that system, and that's Vedic astrology, which is popular in India, more so. So first of all, I mean, there's one which does use astrology that way. So, like, hypothetically, even if that reasoning was disproving astrology, it would only disprove Western astrology. Eastern astrology would still be valid. So, like, first of all, anyone doing that type of reasoning hasn't researched astrology enough to notice that there are different ways of going about it. There's different systems that are different in different parts of the world. So let's kind of push Vedic astrology to the side because that's exempt from this. It survives this test, but Western astrology is still in question because, yes, I'm a Virgo in Western astrology, but the sun was over the Leo constellation. And whatever your sun sign is, it was probably one back from, like, if you were Taurus, the sun was probably actually over the Aries constellation. If you were Gemini, it was probably over the Taurus constellation. If you're Cancer, it's probably over the Gemini constellation. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's just one backward. Why is that? And I have to be sympathetic because there is a discrepancy there. It does seem kind of confusing. So basically, neither system is wrong. It just has to do with the way you're going about astrology. So in Eastern or Vedic astrology, they would say the 0 degrees Aries, let's just say, would be at the very beginning of Aries. It would be at the beginning of the Aries constellation. It would literally be where the Aries star cluster is. That's Aries in Eastern astrology. Very straightforward. They literally use these positions of the stars. Western astrology is more based on the seasons and less based on the actual positioning of the constellations. We still say Aries. We still refer to these constellations because that's where the positions used to be. I think maybe 5,000 years ago you could calculate it, and I'll explain how. Maybe. I don't want to get too technical. I don't want to bore you guys, but again, I can explain all this in more detail if you would like me to as well. But basically, it. So yeah, okay. Eastern astrologers would say 0 degrees Aries is the beginning of the Aries constellation. Western astrologers would say 0 degrees Aries is where the sun was on the first day of spring, and that's where the zodiac signs are forever tied to the seasons and not to the actual constellations. And the reason why those change in relation to one another, why the constellations don't stay the same from our perception on any given day of the year, is because of that wobble. I've done so many takes, I don't remember if I explained this or not. Basically, the Earth not only rotates on its axis, which causes day and night, it also revolves around the sun, and that combined with the tilt causes seasons. There's also other movements of the Earth, and so it also has this wobble to it, almost like a top. If you're spinning a top, it'll stay very even for a while, and then it will slowly start to wobble back and forth. The Earth has basically that, same exact concept. It has a wobble which it slowly does, and it does a whole rotation of that wobble over 25,000 years. So basically, the result of that from our perception is that, let's just say on the first day of spring, the sun will be in a different constellation every like 2,000 to 2,500 years, and that's what determines what age you're in, like age of Pisces, age of Aquarius. That has to do with what constellation the sun was in on the first day of spring. And I can explain more about that in a different video. We could go off and do a tangent about the age, what age it is or whatever. But that just shows you, that gives you an idea of like, at one time we were in the age of Aries, and then the sun actually was at 0 degrees Aries. It actually was at the beginning of the Aries constellation on the first day of spring. And some people say, well, maybe that's when astrology started, because we're still sort of using these terms as if that's still accurate. Although I do have to admit, like, it doesn't appear that way anymore. However, that doesn't mean that astrology isn't valid. Like I said, astrologers will generally be very aware of that. It still works, and Western or Eastern astrology, they both work. They're just different ways of going about it. There is definitely a connection from the signs to the seasons, and that's the way I see it as a Western astrologer. So, like, for instance, I'll just use Aries. Aries is where we begin usually, and it's the beginning of spring. It happens after the spring equinox. So it's the beginning of spring. Everything's sort of starting then. It's a natural beginning point. Aries is very like impulsive. It's constantly beginning things. It's constantly beginning friendships or beginning projects. It's all about beginnings. And so it makes sense that would be at the beginning of the natural year in a way where, everything's blooming, everything's beginning. Do you get what I'm saying? And there are similar parallels between the signs to the seasons, if you will, throughout the rest of the cycle. So that's what we're focusing on in Western astrology more than the constellations themselves. Again, I can understand how that does seem confusing, because we're not literally talking about the constellations when we're talking about Aries, Taurus, Gemini, etc. oftentimes. Okay, does that explain that? Hopefully it does. Again, if you want more information on that, I can explain in another video. Just comment below, ask me. Moving on though, that's the main way that people disprove astrology, or quote unquote disprove astrology. The other ways are, there's just saying, people say that like astrology groups everyone into 12 personalities. That's stupid, because there's more than 12 personalities, and how much detail can you get by grouping everyone into 12? And also it's stupid to say that you're just the same as anyone born around you. Like, I'll just keep using myself. So I was born in September, so it's silly to say, what are you suggesting, anyone born in like, those couple of weeks of September or the last week of August, anyone born there is like detail oriented and practical or cynical or whatever? Yeah, okay, I would agree with that. That is stupid. And that's what I thought before I got into astrology. I thought that that's all that astrology was. And if you're a skeptic at this point, hopefully you should be going, what? That's not all there is to it? And then I can be like, yes, like there's so much more to it than just your sun sign. And I do have to mention that there's this whole sun sign astrology aspect of astrology, which is basically just gibberish and trash. That's a little bit harsh, but it's accurate. Like on Facebook, there's these memes which say like, these 3 signs are the best. They're loyal and caring. Cancer, Scorpio, Libra, or something. And then it'll say, these 3 are liars. Don't trust them. Aries, Taurus, Aquarius. Those are complete nonsense. You really can't judge someone just on their sun sign. But that brings me to the idea of you have more than one sign in your chart. And you do have a chart, which people obviously haven't heard of if they think astrology is just grouping everyone into 12. You have a birth chart depending on your birth date, time, and place. The orientation of not just the sun, but also the rest of the planets and the sky. See, like I'm basically just explaining how astrology works. And so if people, that's the sad thing to me, is that people can dismiss something without even understanding how it works. Because if they understood how it worked, they would see, I don't know. But yeah, you have a whole chart, and so it's specific to you. The orientation of the sky was different when you were born compared to a different hour or even minute of your birthday, let alone a different year or month. So not all Virgos will be the same, for instance. It depends on where was the moon when they were born, what time were they born, where were the horizons in relation to the constellations, or it depends on all that. It depends on what year were they born, what decade were they born, where was Pluto? Was it in a completely different sign, than someone born 10 years ago? There's so many factors to it. I do sometimes ask for people's sun signs, but it gives you only very, very limited amount of information. You really can't make any choices or like really. I mean, you get the faintest of impressions just from the sun sign. There's so little information there. So if anyone is judging someone by their sun sign, that is trash. It is not valid. But that's not truly what astrology is. It's so much more than that. Okay, that sort of leads me to twins, which is another way of debunking astrology. Because they say, like, well, you could have two twins which are born basically at the same date, time, and place as one another, and yet their personalities can be totally different. This I would have to address more on a case by case basis because, first of all, a lot of twins do have a very similar personality, but some definitely don't. Also, some are born closer to each other than others. Some are born just seconds away, and then some might be born minutes away. I don't know a lot about that, but again, it depends on a case by case basis because even if you alter a chart just by minutes, by a matter of minutes, you can drastically change a personality. The planets will be all in the same signs, basically. Although the moon could actually be in a different sign, but it will change the ascendant. It will change the angles the ascendant is making to the rest of the planets. It will change the midheaven, the IC. Basically, the horizons are shifting in relation to the constellations or in relation to the planets. Or you could say the sky appears to be changing in relation to the horizons, and that's on a minute by minute basis. Okay, so basically for that, I would say it depends, but that doesn't disprove astrology because it does depend on a minute by minute basis. But also for that, if you have any like twins that have charts which you think disprove astrology, maybe they have like a very similar date, time, and place, but have drastically different personalities. I would love to read those charts and just see what I think. I mean, I could be honest with you. If you give me two people who have the same exact date, time, and place to the second, and they have drastically different personalities, I think that would disprove astrology. But I just haven't seen that. So please, if you have anything similar to that, I would love to see that. Okay, and then next. Oh, okay. So just to kind of, I'm starting to wrap this up. So just bear with me, but. Next is astrology can't be tested. It's not scientific because it can't have scientific results. You can't test for it. You can't have an experiment and show like in a very tangible way is there a correlation with astrology or not. And that I've just never really understood. I feel like astrology could very easily be tested for in a very simple, straightforward, and inexpensive way. For instance, you could even just use sun sign astrology, which, like I said, that is very basic. It doesn't tell you a lot, but I think there would be enough there to show a correlation. So, for instance, do a survey of just random people and see what kind of professions are they attracted to. How many people work in healthcare? How many people work in hospitality, whatever, and then just see do they match up with the signs that are supposed to be attracted to those areas. So like, do more Virgos work in healthcare than other signs, for instance, or I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? I feel like that would be a very easy way to do a study just off the top of my head. Or you could look at like, do certain sun signs do they more often marry certain other sun signs than other sun signs, and also do they divorce more from certain sun signs? Do you get what I'm saying? There's many different ways you could look at different demographics of society, and especially now with social media, there's so much information about us online. I think you could very easily see, are certain sun signs attracted to certain activities, or do they have similar patterns in their lives than others? Yes or no, and you could in a very straightforward way see, is there a correlation there or not? So I think you definitely could do a study. I don't get why people say that you can't. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a scientist, but just looking at it at face value, I don't see why astrology wouldn't be able to be studied and therefore could maybe be scientific. I just don't understand that. Okay, that pretty much sums up my ideas. Those are just the 4 ways that people disprove astrology, which I thought of off the top of my head. The main one is the precessional cycle. And again, if you want me to talk more about that, I can explain it in much more detail, but it gets very technical. I'm interested in that kind of stuff. I don't think a lot of you are, but if you are, let me know. I'll explain it. And I wanted to mention, if you are a skeptic and you're watching this, I'll totally read your chart. I will read it for free. There's nothing to lose. I know some people say like, well, you could steal my identity or steal my information. All I need is your birth date, time, and place. I don't need to know your name, or I actually don't even need to know your hometown. If you could say it's anywhere within 50 miles of where you were actually born, like, like if you're born in a suburb, just say it's the major city, for instance. Do you get what I'm saying? As long as it's within 50 miles, I would say it's going to be accurate. You're going to have the same results. Um, but yeah, I'm not trying to steal your identity. That's just ridiculous. You can't do anything with the birth date, time, and place, especially the time. I mean, the time is completely irrelevant. So that just leaves the birth date and place, and it's very limited information. I'm not asking for your social security number. I will totally give you a free reading, and you can find me at Manic Recurring Astrology on Facebook, and message me there privately if you want. But yeah, totally free, and I can guarantee you I will see a lot of patterns which can be undeniable in a person's life. I'm not 100% accurate, nor do I claim to be. I do claim to be overwhelmingly accurate, though, at least 80%, probably closer to 90 or 95% with just the things I see and talk about in your chart. It's enough to be undeniable, I would think. I could say, what sun signs are you attracted to in relationships, or what I could see, like, was your childhood easy or difficult? Were you an more introverted child or outgoing child? I could see, were your parents, did they get along? Were they similar to each other, or were they very different? Did they expect different things of you? These are the types of things I could see in a chart, and I could see these pretty easily, I would say, for most charts. So if you're a skeptic, I would love to read your chart and maybe bring you over to the side, but who am I kidding, though? It's 2021. People don't really change their minds about what they believe in. But at any rate, hopefully that sheds some light on some of these things, and maybe makes some skeptics more open-minded, or people who are already into astrology, maybe it reaffirms their beliefs. But at any rate, thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.